Their city council is in attendance, city staff, and around 30 community members supporting youth recreation organizations. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Lane.
Check. So thank you for your time this evening, Mayor and Council. The last time Parks and Recreation presented on this issue of cost recovery to City Council was August 2024. It's been a while. We've got some catching up to do, so we're going to go ahead and just jump in. What's the purpose and goal of tonight's meeting? Purpose of tonight's work session is to provide an opportunity to continue working toward a long-term sustainable cost recovery plan for Parks and Recreation. A thorough review of the project will be provided, as well as some ideas to consider to continue forward progress on this issue. The goal of tonight's work session is to field questions, provide information to enable an informed policy discussion. But why are we doing this project? The answer? To create and adopt an actionable cost recovery methodology that defines the city's decision-making process so Parks and Recreation may establish a level of transparency and consistency of practice in the delivery of services. We must bear in mind that we are charged with the responsibility of being stewards of taxpayer dollars. We are tasked to serve all members of our community equitably. This means we will take all reasonable measures to provide fair and just access to Parks and Recreation resources, opportunities, and services, and do what we can to ensure that everyone can thrive regardless of their background or circumstances. We need to manage finite resources thoughtfully and keep an eye toward the future and plan accordingly. It is important to note that City Code Section 3401 states, and I quote, "The philosophy is to base user fees on cost of service so the city will be able to recover the costs associated with delivering a service to an individual or group. By recovering the cost of providing a service, the rest of the community is not subsidizing services benefiting individuals." End quote. It is also important to note that City Code 3402B states we are required to complete a cost of service study every 5 years. Therefore, once the cost recovery plan is put in place, we will begin to establish this routine and will schedule subsequent reviews every 5 years from that point forward. The cost recovery plan addresses the requirements as described in City Code 3402 and proposes a rational process for setting fees and charges once adopted and implemented. Adding a recreation division to the department compounds the importance of addressing how fees are calculated, set, and administered for these new services. Establishing a method and system are fundamental components for long-term financial sustainability and fiscal responsibility. The approach we have chosen for this effort provides an opportunity to proactively assess and improve the equity dimensions of our community by incorporating a lens of fairness and equity for decision making. This means ensuring we aim for equitable outcomes by adopting and establishing fair and just practices and policies that are impartial and do not favor or discriminate against any group. We are embracing an operational model that is laser focused on principle-driven service. Goal number 4 of both the 2024 and 2025 City Council goals is to enhance recreation opportunities for all. The objective attached to the City Council goal states, complete the Parks and Recreation Cost Recovery Plan. Intended outcomes for the City Council goal are increased quality of life for a happy and healthy community, fiscal sustainability for maintenance and operations, accessible recreation opportunities for all ages and abilities. We believe that if we have a stable base from which to develop recreation opportunities, the better positioned we will be to deliver services that increase quality of life and influence a happy and healthy community. The cost recovery plan we are proposing is in direct response to addressing the need to be fiscally responsible for the department's maintenance and operations. Without the plan, we have limited direction and are left to make assumptions about some financial decisions. By establishing a cost recovery plan that provides a level of subsidy by the city for those programs identified as the greatest common good, we increase our ability to make recreation opportunities accessible to a greater expanse of the community. Along with the goals, objectives, and outcomes, there's a set of values that are also adopted annually by City Council. Over the past 2 years, these values have not changed, and every City Council value is connected to this project. By considering the cost recovery plan, City Council is demonstrating financial stewardship and a responsibility to the management of finite city financial resources. Cost recovery plan is in direct response to community members' desire to have policies and programs in place that represent their interests. We can level the playing field, so to speak, in our delivery of services through the incorporation of a cost recovery plan. As stated previously, and I cannot emphasize this enough, by establishing a cost recovery plan that provides a level of subsidy by the city for those programs identified with the greatest common good, we increase our ability to make recreation opportunities accessible to a greater expanse of the community. The cost recovery plan is strategic planning at its finest. The plan we are proposing is a proactive approach to long-term department stability that is intended to maintain resources through challenging times. Where are we at in this process and what's been done so far? Parks and Recreation began this work in 2021. I apologize for the small print there. At that time, we very intentionally purchased and implemented Civic Rec, an online registration system that also captures and generates data. We needed to start collecting accurate data if we were going to work on making changes to our condition. Then in 2022, City Council adopted an amended fee schedule that allowed for the establishment of recreation program fees. This was done in anticipation of establishing a recreation program, which we have done, and it has shown steady growth over the past 3 years. We really started to dive deep the last half of calendar year 2023. The Budget Committee and City Council approved funding of an assessment and fee plan. We solicited a request for quotes for the plan, hired a consultant, and conducted the fee study portion of the project. The project continued into calendar year 2024. First half of that year was spent soliciting input and crafting a path forward. 2 joint work sessions with the Parks and Recreation Commission and City Council were held, as well as a community stakeholder workshop and a partner network workshop. Feedback and engagement through this collection of meetings resulted in a draft recommended cost recovery model provided by the consultant that was then presented to City Council in August of that year during a work session. Actual fees were not discussed at that time. The result of the work session was consensus by City Council on the 3 components of the draft cost recovery model. First, the 10 identified service categories and their definitions received consensus. Definitions of these categories has been provided in your packet. Next, the cost recovery goals for each of the categories received consensus. And lastly, the cost recovery continuum also received consensus. The last part of calendar year 2024 was spent working through the draft cost recovery policy with the Parks and Recreation Commission. The draft policy was crafted based on the feedback and consensus received from council at the August 2024 work session. The commission raised concerns about the rentals category and the impact of assessing fees. Those concerns were specifically focused on field use rentals by local youth athletic organizations. The commission opted to hold a work session in October 2024 to explore ideas and discuss options to address the rentals category. The session was well attended by representatives of several youth sports organizations. That meeting resulted in consensus to pursue the idea of the city establishing a formalized partnership agreement with each of the youth athletic organizations. City staff prepared a draft partnership memorandum of understanding for the commission to consider at their regularly scheduled November meeting. The commission opted to make no recommendation and hold a meeting with stakeholders instead. At the regularly scheduled meeting in December, the commission voted to recommend approval of the draft cost recovery plan and policy as presented, excluding the rentals category. At the February regular meeting, the commission entertained a motion to, quote, waive fees for nonprofit youth athletic organizations. The vote resulted in 3 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstain. The motion failed. After the vote was held, the commission determined they would hold a work session to further discuss a recommendation to City Council regarding rental fees for athletic spaces. At the March work session held by the commission, consensus was reached that they were at an impasse on a recommendation regarding the rentals category. Later that month, at the regular meeting, the commission entertained a motion to, quote, recommend that City Council approve the cost recovery plan and policy except for the rental service category, as the Parks and Recreation Commission was unable to reach consensus on that item of the plan and policy, end quote. As a result of this outcome, the mayor and Councilor Marshall, he's the City Council liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, determined that a meeting with stakeholder group representatives was an appropriate next step. This action was presented to City Council during councilor comments at the March 17, 2025 meeting. The athletic club and organization stakeholder meeting was held last week with myself, City Manager Vander Zanden, Mayor Wenzel, Councilor Marshall in attendance. A total of 20 local athletic clubs and organizations were identified and invited to participate. Representatives from 6 of the organizations were in attendance and provided comment. Consistent themes we gathered from their comments were affordability, maximizing opportunity for participation, and recognition that these organizations provide a benefit to the community. Before we get much further, we should get a clear understanding of what the city controls as far as athletic spaces are concerned. The Aquatic Center main pool, otherwise referred to as the competition pool, is utilized by various groups for both leisure and competitive aquatic-based activities. This pool has 6 lanes. Thatcher Park offers 2 baseball, softball fields, or 1 soccer field. The space is configured with overlapping fields. This design maximizes the space, but it also limits opportunity for both sports to occur at the same time. Joseph Gale Park offers 1 baseball field and 2 t-ball fields. Currently, only the baseball field is reservable. Lincoln Park offers 1 baseball field, 1 softball field, 1 football, soccer, lacrosse, turf field with 1 track, and 1 football, soccer, lacrosse, grass field. All these spaces are reservable. These spaces are particularly challenging to access most of the year when Pacific University is in session, as a large portion of the student body at Pacific are athletes that participate in the sports that utilize these spaces. In preparation for this work session, I was asked to prepare a few options for discussion and consideration. Each option presented will contain an if-then statement, as well as the main pro and con for that option, at least that I was able to identify. Option 1. If council maintains consensus reached at the August 2024 work session, then all rentals of spaces will be assessed fees as prescribed in the cost recovery model. But the pro is there would then be consistent application of fees for all rentals. The con is possibility of significant cost increase to renters that rent a space multiple times. Option 2. If council expands the definition of rentals to further define as one-time use, then multiple rentals by an individual or group will be addressed under a separate rental agreement and policy. The pro is that this option provides opportunity for equal access at an equal rate to all renters. The con is an increase in staff time to administer. Option 3. If council removes rentals from the cost recovery model, then either reservations will be accepted, but no fee will be assessed for use of all spaces, or all spaces will no longer be reservable and will be treated on a first-come, first-served basis. The pro is there would be a decrease in staff time to administer. The con is that all rentals become fully subsidized by the city. Keep in mind, these are just 3 options to help get the discussion going. Next steps of the project include discussion and consensus. Once a consensus is reached, staff would finalize a draft cost recovery policy for council's consideration at a future meeting. Following that would be a resolution to adopt both the cost recovery plan and the cost recovery policy. Then staff would proceed with implementation as directed. I do want to thank you for your time and commitment to this effort. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and of course, welcome discussion on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lane. Are there any questions? You have a question?
Yeah. I just want to be clear, Director Lane, on the option, well, on any of the options, actually, when you're referring to the fee proposal, there hasn't actually been proposals in dollar amounts. You're talking about the percentage of recovery. You're talking about that scale. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, right now we're talking about percentage of cost recovery.
Director Lane, do you mind really teasing out the difference between option 1 and option 2?
Certainly.
I want to just unpack option 2 because
Yeah.
we've met and it's just, yeah, thanks.
Sure, no problem. Mariah, can you put option 1 up there? So I wanted to provide kind of 2 extreme ends of the spectrum and one maybe in the middle. So that's what these 3 options represent. Option 1 is just a reflection of consensus that was reached back in August 2024. That's consensus. There was no vote taken at that meeting. And that consensus was on the model that was presented. And this would be, option 1 would be just an implementation of that, what's existing as a draft. Can you switch to option 2? Option 2, this is a kind of a more creative approach, if you will, to addressing rentals without discounting the value of the continuum or the cost recovery project as it exists. Rentals are defined as a pretty broad group, and we get rentals for lots of different things. Rentals for youth athletic groups tend to be pretty broad in nature. Several dates at a time are reserved. Other rentals that also exist under this definition are like a one-time picnic shelter reservation, or somebody wants to rent the spray park for a birthday party. So all of those rentals are kind of existing in this category as it currently is defined. What we're offering for discussion is to rewrite that definition and rewrite that definition to say rentals as it is in this continuum and in this cost recovery model is going to refer to one-time rentals. So the one-time spray park birthday party, the one-time park shelter rental, that's how rentals will be defined, and the associated cost recovery range would be applied to those rentals. Then is the question, well, what happens to the groups that do make multiple reservations with us? How do we address that? We're putting an idea out there that multiple rentals by an individual or group could be kind of pulled aside and addressed under a rental agreement and policy. We currently use rental agreements and policies with all of our reservations. So that agreement and policy would be crafted to be a reflection of how those groups use the space.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Could you, so like, let's say, like me as an old lady wants to have like a kickball birthday party, like could you still look at an athletic field and have it as a one-time rental?
Yeah, for sure.
So it could be used both. And those calendars would just sync up or like lay over, like overlay each other. You know what I mean?
I think there's different ways that we can approach this idea. Right now, we take rentals just on an ongoing basis, and you can make a reservation up to 1 year in advance. If we were to consider this idea, we would need to certainly kind of define the parameters of it, right? The school district, I've met several times with Doug to talk about, how does he deal with the groups that utilize the spaces there? And 2 times a year, he invites all of those user groups to a meeting, and they sit down with the calendar and the spaces, and they mark out their time. That's an approach that I am certainly interested in. I think I don't want to speak for the groups, but what I've been hearing is being able to, one, know what to expect. How much is this going to cost? Is it going to cost me anything? When can I make a reservation? So that would address this. If we have set dates throughout the calendar year for reservations for set periods, I think that would be an approach that has been proven in this community to work, that we can sort of tweak a little bit to make it work for park and rec spaces too.
Any other questions? I have one more, but I don't want to monopolize all the questions. So currently, I believe that Pacific University, so the city of Forest Grove, and the school district are participating in, like, we hired a consultant to look at facilities. So is this topic going to be part of that work?
I think it certainly could. The consultant was hired to
that light's fine.
Well, now it's ready. Now it's ready. Plug it in. So the consultant was hired to bring really 4 entities together and talk about long-term recreation opportunities and long-term recreation facilities, and see if there was ways to provide consistency, clarity, and more benefit to the community. Those entities are Pacific University, Cornelius, Forest Grove, and the Forest Grove School District. And so some of the items that they haven't had their first meeting yet, but there's been some meetings with individuals about what to meet about. Some of the themes that are coming out of that are, one is this theme right here. How do you want to administer public facilities across kind of not only the user groups themselves, the general public, and then look at how do you want to administer that long term. So yes, and the short answer to your question is this could fit into that conversation. That conversation has started, but it's just really getting started right now. So.
All right, so I think the biggest concern with the community is the price. When we had our not the last stakeholders meeting, but when you weren't part of this one, there was the Civic Rec was. I think so. I can speak loud enough. Civic Rec was given out.
No, it's for that.
For recording.
It's for this.
Oh, sorry. All right. So with the pamphlet that was handed out with Civic Rec, or is that what it is? Showed all the fees. I think that was what the concern is it by adding up everything from what the fee structure said with the new program, they were able to see how much it was. And so without knowing exact price, that's where the concern is. So that's where we need to figure out if that was actually adding correctly. So I don't know that anybody else has seen that part of it.
Well, I think I'm going to take it. Do you care, Director Lane? So I received emails too, and, in some of the listening session, the cost per lane, Dragon Swim Club brought up, Forest Grove Little League Baseball is brought up, but I don't know where that information came from.
It was given to us at one of the meetings, one of the stakeholders meetings. It was passed out as a pamphlet to everybody. Cody, you were part of that one as well, and it was handed out. And that's where everybody's getting the number from. So that's where the concern is, and I had it with me, but I left it at home.
I think we should, because I was curious about that too. I was like, is this someone's math? Was this handed out? But I think for us as policymakers, we should walk it back, right? And I think that information, because what I'm seeing is, which direction, I guess the question right now is out of, let's vet these three options. And, and I do, I was wondering that as well. I was going to actually ask the question, but then I realized I'm like, well, we don't really need to do that because we need to decide the option first. So, Director Lane, do you know it, Councilor Marshals? Did you want to speak to it at all, or?
I know at that work session that the Parks and Recreation Commission held in late October, we did go through in great detail how the pricing tool works, how we calculate per hour rates for spaces. A pamphlet, I'm not aware of a pamphlet.
For that whole slideshow, put into it. I apologize.
Okay.
I showed you, Jesse. I showed you that. Yeah, it was the one you handed out to everybody, and I think that's where the confusion is that might not be the exact pricing, but that could be, because with the exact pricing, if you add up what soccer, JVO, and swim would be, it would end up being about $296,000 that the city would make. So that's where the issue is, and that's where the concern is. So if we can figure out if that's the actual number, then that would make people feel more at ease. So I think that's where we're at.
So maybe I can, and Director Lane, if I'm off on this, please chime in. It's my understanding that during that work session, there's a model, there's like a cost recovery model, and you can put some numbers into it, and then you can get some numbers out of it. And it was my understanding that this was kind of, as an example, this is how it would work. There hasn't been any official fees that have been proposed to the council yet, specific fees like you would find on an Exhibit A and the council would vote on. But there was some work done from an illustrative perspective or from an examples perspective, and I think that's where the concern was coming from.
That's what the main.
That's
the main concern, and that's where I think people are getting their confusion in numbers.
Sure.
If we actually had exact numbers, and I think that's we can do any of these options if the price is low enough that it makes it worthwhile for everybody to do it. But we can do any of these options, and if the number is too high, it's not going to be feasible for anybody to do. I think that's the issue, is not knowing what the actual number would end up being.
Right.
I mean, we can choose any option here without knowing what it's going to affect the youth sports. You're not going to have any backing from anybody in the community. It has to be advantageous for both. And that's kind of where we're at, is when we have those numbers that were out, if it just showed a different calculation, but I think what it was is when it showed those calculations of how it could be really drastic, that's when the concern started.
And I think just to maybe add to that, or just to maybe clarify, there is, so when the city passes any kind of fee, whether it's regarding the pool, whether it's regarding facility rentals, any of the rates and fees that get passed, there's a schedule associated with it. They're published, et cetera. I think in this particular case, there was a moratorium that was put on by the council 2 years ago for field facility rentals. And there's actually two categories in the field facility rental exhibit. One is for lights. So if it's at night and it's the cost center there is the cost of the lights. And so the fee is directly attached to the electricity expense of the light. The second fee is the rental fee. And that's the fee that the council, I think it was 2 years ago, put a moratorium on, and it's not been administered. And so I think part of this is to try and resolve some of that, but just for both the council and also for the audience, there still is a moratorium on those fees. Those fees are not being administered by the department. And there's no proposal at this point to administer those fees. That's part of the discussion for tonight and the future.
I think what I appreciate is that Director Lane and your staff has gone back and done some additional work, because, you know, one of the themes, the emerging themes from the listening session, you know, is that you have community members volunteering their time to provide this service. And, you know, it's a lot of, you know, human powered, like volunteer hours, maintenance. And I think that I personally like option 2, because I think we've gone back and given credit for that there's 2 different types of rentals. There is the rental of, hey, you know, my kid's birthday is November 17th. Yeah, so I rented the pool a whole lot, right? And that's a one-time rental. But there has to be, I appreciate that there's a different category for organizations that will use it over and over again for a large group of people to do a recreational activity. So for me, I like option 2 at this point, as, you know, it's kind of that middle of the road, you know, and I guess, I don't know if I don't want to skip over Councilor Marshall's point. Did you feel?
No, not at all. I see where you're going with it. I think we can go with option 2. It does make sense to kind of make a difference between like splash pad and field usage. But figuring out the price, I mean, that's what we had to do later on down the line. But it's like we can take any avenue we want. If it doesn't make sense monetarily for these guys, it's going to...
I think we're in a more flexible position by separating the two.
Yeah.
And bringing those multi-use rentals, those sequential rentals out of that continuum. I think that gives us a lot more flexibility to figure out what is an appropriate rate and system to manage those programs and the spaces.
Go ahead, Councilor.
I just want to comment on the con on this option, because I actually kind of think having longer term agreements and MOUs with a specific organization, having that sort of what we were talking about earlier with a calendar, a forecasting that looks ahead of time and is very predictable, and you know exactly what the season is, that actually could decrease staff time. I mean, maybe it takes a little bit more time to set up initially to implement it, but then on an ongoing basis, it probably reduces some admin time.
So where this con comes from is that it is a constant management of the civic rec system and the reservation system. So when a group, if they for a block of time they make 50 reservations, which is not unusual to get a batch that large, we have to put each individual reservation in, block the space out, make sure that it's set how they have requested it to be set, which ones have lights, etc. It's a pretty detailed process. It's not a cut and paste process. And also being timely with that, because we have to keep in mind those individual rentals. And if we don't keep that system up to date and accurate with the groups, then we have these one-off rentals that are sliding in there and disrupting the rhythm. So we need to, there is a significant amount of staff time. Will staff in time get more proficient and speedy? Likely. But it is just a huge wave that comes every time these seasons come around. And that it's really unavoidable.
I mean, did you have a question? Okay. 1 minute and then I'll give you my mic because I've been talking too much. But I think, in my ideal situation, well, I guess I mean, I don't know. It seems to me, and even after this listening session, the community members view the school district, the city, our facilities as one and the same, right? It was like, and so, because, I mean, let's be real. The voters passed the school district bond. They passed a levy for the city. And so these are public spaces. And so anyways, going back to the consultant, and trying to really shore this up with working together, our entities I would just like to see us get to a place where we're all working really cohesively together. And I don't know if that's because of an MOU, an IGA, we contract out that position, but the fees are the same across we do an inventory of facilities. We know what's going on. People can rent. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get that great, but I think it's, for me, as a taxpayer and as a person who lives here and a teacher and the mayor, it's like, those are all things the community has supported and voted yes to have access to. And so it's really difficult for me when I hear oh, well, this group, I think, this group didn't have to pay because they had this agreement or this person. And so I think I'd just like to see systems in place that support equity and accessibility and community. And then I'll get off my soapbox and pass to Councilor Schimmel.
Working?
Nope.
No?
No.
Well, first, and independent of this cost recovery, I want to applaud you for your care and concern for the facilities that you're being asked to be responsible for. An example is the repair of the pool and the repair of Hazel Souls Park. Ensuring that those were safe before opening. I want to applaud you for that. And I guess for everyone in the room, I've been on council for 6 months. Having said that, I'm read up on everything that's been done over the past 2 years, and with great respect for my colleagues who were here during those 2 years, I don't think you got it right on just the fundamental policy questions. And just check my knowledge, the policy itself hasn't been adopted by council.
No.
Okay. So personally, I want to rewrite the policy. I mean, page 1, page 2, go back, because I think there's the attribution of equity is wrong. The attribution of public benefit and common good is wrong. I believe we need to attribute common good independent of organization of whether the city runs the program or not. And full disclosure, both my kids were in soccer. They were on the swim club, so I have a firsthand experience to not only the benefit and the life skills building of the kids, but also the community that is developed with the parents. That doesn't. I mean, I haven't heard that happen with a city-run program. That's not to say they bring some value. I'm just saying to contrast public benefit between a city-run program and a club, I think doesn't accurately reflect the opportunity and the quality of life of our community. So I'm not even ready to suggest an option here. I want to go back and rewrite the plan. And I realize that's taking 2 years of work away, and maybe we can, figure out a way to fast track that. But, I'm not going to vote on any of these. I wouldn't vote on any of these options, even if it was if that was the process today, because we got to address just the fundamental values and attributes of our decision making before exercising options on a fee schedule.
I would also, I guess maybe I would echo some of those sentiments in sort of reflecting on my own experience as a kiddo. And I think that, because of budgetary constraints, things, the city doesn't have as much money as it used to, and I didn't grow up here, but the city where I grew up, those teams that I was on, those were run by the city. We don't run any of these programs as the city. So we depend on a huge, vast network of volunteers who give more hours than the city could ever afford. If we were to budget the amount of time and the equipment and the expertise, if we were to actually put that into our budget, we wouldn't be able to afford it. And so I think that's something that I think about. So I agree with you. When I looked at that scale and I sort of understood initially that, the youth sports programs were where they fell on the chart, it didn't make sense to me either. I think option 2 tries to address that. And so I think that, while I'm not completely bought in on the current draft of the policy, I don't know that we can't move forward today. Because I think there's still opportunity, because this has not been passed by council. We still have opportunity to tweak this. And so I would say, rather than hitting a stop, I would say, let's look at more of a sort of pumping the brakes a little bit for like a slowdown, and look at this in light of, what we're learning and the conversation that we're having today.
Go ahead.
So I know we were talking about, splitting up multiple use. Has there ever been a consideration of splitting up sport team versus recreation team as far as just enjoyment? Has that been thought about and splitting it that way? But then also I do like this number 2, and I agree with you, Councilor Falconer. I think we can work with this. I would just want to know what the impact would be to non-multiple group members. And just like Councilor Marshall said, I would really need to understand what that means financially, because I think most of us have experience with paying for fields or not paying for fields, and knowing what that looks like would be very helpful.
So I've heard one person does not have a preference on the options. And then I believe 3, let me count, right, 3 for option 2. And revisiting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, so would it be helpful to the council? So what I'm hearing is moving in a direction with option 2, but then actually seeing like some examples of numbers of what that looks like. And then, so we would need a second work session. Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
Well, I'm unclear about what we're clarifying, but I guess I would want any, reevaluation to include the reevaluation of just how we are prescribing very important values around what we mean by equity, because I disagree, and it's all too common. It's not unique to Parks and Rec. It's every level of government misappropriates equity for equality, and they're not the same thing. So I think we need to absolutely address that as a city that is uniformly implemented or applied across every department. And I also want to make sure we're addressing what we attribute to public benefit or common good, in respect of what all aspects of recreation provide or improve the quality of life. So irrespective of city-run programming, just have a better attribution of those terms in the policy itself.
And one more comment. I guess my overall goal, regardless of how we do this, is to keep as many kids in the fields and out of their house and off the streets as possible. Because in the long run, that is going to benefit the city. It's going to benefit when we're dealing with issues with kids being out, not being focused on becoming a part of a team, all these things that are social learning by being on these teams that are going to benefit us when we're old. And the ones that we raised are the ones running the city. So that's really my end goal, is to keep those kids in the fields.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Councilor Martinez, we haven't heard from you. Are you? Director Lane, do you have direction from us that you need? Or do you have any clarifying questions?
I think I would like to know besides what does it cost, what else are you looking for?
I think for me, I'm not really looking for too much else. I just want, and honestly, I don't know, how much time are you going to need to, well, go ahead.
I guess I'm kind of wondering, is the next step, we talk about cost, or are we talking about structure of, what does this look like?
This is what I think, and I'm just going to be pretty blunt. The cost, the affordability, the ability for these nonprofits to be able to keep doing what they're doing is that's what we heard on Monday. That's what all of our emails have said. And so I don't feel comfortable, and I'm hearing from my colleagues that we don't feel comfortable moving forward on any policy where we really won't know how it's going to impact those. Right. Yeah. So I think that's why we need to just know the structure, and then it doesn't have to be, obviously it's a work session, but just to tell us the metrics or the calculations. Jesse, your head's killing me. Sorry. But just the calculations of how you're gonna get to that fee.
Okay.
That's what does my colleagues want
That's
to?
the same for me. It's like, what algorithm are you going to choose? And then those numbers that we plug in will kind of inform what percentage we want to change things, what percentage we want to put on the city instead of the community as far as payment. But then if you also have two different scenarios of a direction you can go, I wouldn't mind seeing both of them. But my goal is my goal, right? Just like Mayor said, is we really need to make sure that the kids can afford to play.
So a refined definition of what rentals is, a listing of how much our one-off rental's going to be, and an understanding of options for multiple rentals.
Schimmel.
So we keep defaulting to a granular fee schedule. The policy itself we haven't approved, and I can't get on board with just the fundamentals written into the policy that inform the fee schedule. in my mind,
What do you need? I need you to be like really clear because we have staff right now. We haven't worked.
I just went through, I just said.
I'm not following. So you want to rewrite this whole, like, so you want to redo this whole thing, that whole arrow, like the things that the Parks and Rec Commission voted yes on.
I want to go further upstream. This is all a product of the value proposition of the cost recovery plan to begin with, and it's the page 1, 2, 3 of the policy document that we haven't even approved yet. I mean, that all of that informs, and I appreciate the anxiety that Anne's feeling right now. I think she was, if I'm blind, set up for failure on this because it wasn't made clear from the start what was important. And we're getting down to a fee schedule that is painful for everyone because we weren't clear on the expectations. So I want to go back to the beginning of the policy document to clarify what is important. What do we mean by equity? How does equity translate into our recreational programs? How do we attribute common good, public benefit versus an exclusive use? I think Anne deserves that better clarity on that piece before we even get any further on a fee schedule.
So, and I'm making this statement just because of a basic understanding from what I think Councilor Schimmel is making. Okay, understand that. I think we should be looking at this as an equality situation, not as equity, because we have people of all different economic levels. We shouldn't look at ethnicity or any of that. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's all about affordability for how people, if they can put their kids into an activity and let them play with other kids. Younger kids don't even think about that kind of thing. It's not about that, and it shouldn't be about that, because that's how we come together as a community, is when we don't look at those things.
Maybe this is a different way to phrase the question. Right now, I think what was being discussed was that the field rentals was in the rentals category. If you apply if you look at it, and what I'm kind of hearing, I don't know if there's a consensus, is that it's really more into the community/common good. And I guess I'm going to maybe ask a direct question. Is there a different category on the same model? And would that change the look of the model? And if so, what category would it be?
That's exactly what my suggestion would be, is that what we need to do when we not only need to redefine rentals at the top there to refer to one-time rentals, but we also need to add a category in the common good, low community, yes, youth,
What if it's adult? I mean, like, what if it's a unified adult? What if it's even Go ahead.
I just also wanted to, I think, just to, not to speak for Councilor Schimmel, but to maybe respond, because I'm thinking there might be some misunderstanding between, yeah, I think what Councilor Schimmel was referring to is that treating all rentals equally is problematic. And so, like, the equity piece refers to youth sports, organized youth recreational opportunities shouldn't be treated the same as a private rental. And I think so that is, there's that, I think that's the what you were referring to, a difference between equity and equality.
That's what my understanding was from the beginning, is that that's what my understanding has been from the beginning, is that we would separate those common good and regular rentals, because we obviously can't charge for those equally.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to give a little historical context to Counselor Schimmel's statement. I think the first few pages, I don't think that that's what's created the tension in this. My understanding, and the reason I voted yes for a moratorium on facility fees is because it was my understanding that certain organizations we had fees for rental for facilities, and that some organizations paid it and some didn't have to pay it. And there was this is what I heard from organizations and community members. And so we knew as a council that we were going to go through this because of our ordinance that said this. And we hired a consultant, we got Civic Rec. And so we said, and that's why we should chew on this, but we said, hey, until we have a policy, until we know it is fair and right, everyone's getting the same thing. So in this sense, I do believe that when you have equal, for me, I want everyone to have the opportunity to rent the space and use it, right? And so that is fair. So anyways, that's, I think, the tension that the council has felt. And, I don't want to speak for Director Lane, but that is the tension of oh, well, now you're going to charge us, but we had this agreement that we weren't going to be charged. And so that's why we've undertaken all of this work. I agree, and I think it's a really good idea that I think we can refine this. I would agree with you that it's not policy, but we still need to do the work. I'm not willing to stop talking about this really hard topic that went round and round at our advisory committee, and now we've had all these things. We have the momentum right now and have done all this work to figure this out. So I would like to continue trying to solve it and trying to refine this so we can come to consensus, but I don't want to stop talking about cost recovery because there's one or two things for me, I think there's one or two things on this that could be fixed. I don't see it as an overarching, huge equity issue.
Is the preference then that I bring back an option to add a new category and then another option to pull group reservations out?
I'm happy with that, but can I see nods, yes or no?
I'm not understanding. Those are two different options?
So they could be two different options. If we add a category that is whatever you want to call it, and you put a cost recovery range on there, then that's how the fee is determined, is by that cost recovery range. If you redefine rentals as they exist up there to be a one-time rental, and then sequential rentals are just removed from this program and have their own fee that perhaps it's a flat fee per quarter that recaptures the administrative expenses or a portion of maintenance, however we want to look at that. I can bring both options to explore, but I just looking for clear direction here.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarifying question. I think I wasn't quite understanding the distinction, but I agree. I think we need to see both. And it could be that we still end up with an extra category on this line.
Sure.
Councilor Schimmel. I can tell you want to say something.
You want consensus.
I don't want consensus.
You.
Well, I have to get consensus, but I don't have to have it be unanimous.
You gave me the
Okay,
floor,
sorry.
Mayor, please. So, yeah, it sounds like you got your consensus. I object to the way you're positioning my comments as you're marginalizing my comments. In my point of view, our critical role is to establish sound, clear policy that our directors can execute. I don't feel like Ann's been given clear enough policy to execute. And here we are 2 years later and having problems. That I feel bad for Ann. To me, addressing clarity on equity and attributing important phrases like common good is critical to the policy before these fee schedules can materialize. So I think in addition, I'm not suggesting stop. I'm suggesting that we got to address the policy itself in addition to either of these options. And the emphasis is on clarity on some of those important terms that need to be employed consistently across every department.
I'm sorry if how I was running this meeting marginalized your comments. I guess I'm just not understanding. So I can see the definition of common good in the policy. And so can you give us more information about what in that what's missing from that you think we should work on?
Well, we're not even, the policy itself wasn't even a reference, so I can't really, I mean, we're not looking at that as a reference, which seems wrong as well. That should be a reference to our discussion here. So let's, I would be happy to sit down with Ann and go through that and talk about how we want to, or if we want to do it across departments. It's like my interest is in getting this right, not getting it done. That's what I'm feeling frustrated by. We're trying to get this done. I'm wanting to get it right because it's unfair to Ann to be at this point. And yes, it's a new council, but I guess that's the consequence of elections. So I want to get this right. I want to get the policy right. I'm with Councilor Gustafson about keeping kids on the field. I'll do that at whatever expense in terms of policy to ensure those kids are on the field, because that's common good.
Just to clarify, when you're talking about across policy, are you talking about that lens again, where we're like, across department, where we're talking about the lens and what really defining? What does this mean? What does that mean? What does common good mean? All of that? Is that what you mean? Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
I'm with the 80-20 rule at this point because we have come so far. It's the money has been spent doing all of this. So although I'm not completely against, going over the policy, but I think we need to finish this. And I know this is a difficult thing to say in politics and city government, but at some point we have to decide to go and then pay close attention so that we can switch it if we fail. Fail fast and redo it. But it's been a long haul.
Any additional? We're like towards the end of our work session. We're 5 minutes over. Okay, Councilor Marshall.
Sorry. So this hasn't been brought to council a lot. This has been kicked around with the commission for a long time. So bringing it to council, this is basically, this has been in works for 2 years. This is the first time we've brought this part of it to it. So it's not that it was previous council. It's not that it's incoming council. It's not that it's any council. We're making a decision now to move forward to figure it out, because this was not brought to council because even the commission couldn't come to a consensus on this. So I see what you're meaning about making the policy, but you can still rewrite a policy after we figure out how we want this continuum to be, because that's the issue right now, is figuring out where we want things to be on this, and then we can write the policy to match that. So you're looking at it at making a policy, then doing it. I think we can do it both ways. So either way can work, by starting it with the continuum, figuring out how we want to do it, how we want to base things, and then we can write the policy for that, to meet that. So, that's my opinion. You have your opinion. We could both work together to kind of make it work. And that we both have the same goal in mind, is keep kids on the field. I think that's kind of the consensus is that we all want that same goal. And so how we're going to get it, we just need to figure it out and work together with that. And so if we can all figure out how we want it to get done, we can get it done fast. But it doesn't have to get done fast because there is a moratorium on it. We still have time. There's been no deadline that's been put on getting this done right now. So we have time.
I would just say on the field and in the pool. And also, I would just make a suggestion. My plan, Councilor Schimmerl, is to come, I mean, when we go to adopt this, we'll be looking at the entire package. We won't just be looking at a fee schedule. And so we should make sure that we come prepared to make our suggestions for improving the policy so that it does reflect the values.
And one more just clarifying question. We'll have a work session, like unpacking all of this, and can give our suggestions and all of those things. So, okay. Do you have what you need from us?
Yes, I do. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you. I'm going to adjourn this work session. I'm going to give like the audience a few minutes, and then we'll switch over to our next topic. Thank you. This work session is adjourned. Work session of the Forest Grove City Council. The time is 6:30, and we're going to talk about parking enforcement. And we have our police chief, Henry Ryman, here to join us.
Good evening, Mayor. Well, anyways, is timely due to the annual fee schedules being considered at the June 23rd, 2025 City Council meeting. Next slide. So under City Code, parking fines are authorized under Section 73.020. Owners have 10 days to pay the fine. If no response, the fine doubles. If 3 or more unpaid citations, the vehicle is subject to impound or immobilization, referring to the boot. Parking fees are established administratively by resolution. Allow staff to change state fines where applicable. And upon citation, a judge has discretion to lower said fines. Next slide. So a little about the history. Parking fines have not changed since 2005. Resolutions were adopted in 2005 and 14 adopting parking fines. However, the 2014 resolution readopted the same fines in the 2005 resolution due to an overall code change that required they be readopted. The primary reason for our session this evening is to increase fines so we can encourage voluntary compliance. So many fines listed in the 2014 resolution now have state fines that can apply. This has raised the issue about which fine to apply. Approximately half of the fines on the following page have an association to a state statute, and we can apply those state fines. So this raises 2 questions for council. For those city fines that have applicable state fine, whether council wants to default to the state fine, such as traffic citations, or remove the city fine. For those city fines that remain, whether council wants to address these fines. So you can see this is our current fee schedule. Approximately 10 of those fines fall under Oregon state statute, such as no parking zones, obstructing sidewalk, driveways, and so forth fall under state statute, and that fine is actually $115. So our code enforcement person has the discretion to fine or to cite under city fines, which is currently $15, as you can see, or apply the state statute. Next slide. So this is an example of our comparables with overtime parking, where you can see Forest Grove is $15. Pacific University has kind of a range between $20 and $50, depending on the parking violation itself. Tualatin is $25. Beaverton is $45. Hillsborough has a sliding fee, which is interesting because they start out with a $15 fee, and if you're there an additional 2 hours, it's double to $30. If you're still there 2 hours afterwards, it is $60. And McMinnville is $20. Maybe you had a question. Yeah. Next slide. So parking citations written in 2022. Our code enforcement person has written 2,432 citations. In 23, it was 2,618. In 24, it's 1,614. What we saw in 14 is actually Carol had some time off. Excuse me, in 2024, she had time off, as well as we started seeing more other code violations that take a lot of time for our code enforcement person to handle. Next slide. So, questions for discussion. Does council want to default to state fines where they are applicable? Does council want to consider raising non-state parking fines? If so, by how much? If a new fee is implemented, do we discuss effective date to allow notification, i.e. 60, 90, or 120 days? And pending on consensus, next step should be a resolution at the June 23rd, 2025 meeting. And that's my presentation for this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Questions?
So how much are state fines, for one?
So the state fine currently is $115 for several of those. As I mentioned, obstructing a crosswalk is $115. Obstructing a sidewalk is $115. Parked within an intersection is $115 under state statute. Blocking a driveway is $115. We're currently using the parked in a violation of a disabled parking zone is $160. That is the state fine.
And those sound good. Personally, the sliding scale, the thing is though too, that Carol, our code enforcement officer, has to go back to those places. And does she even have time to do that?
The answer is no. We only have one code enforcement person that handles not only the parking issues in the immediate area, as well as other complaints that deal with code violations with the city, being, illegal dumping, home businesses that are violating parking violations, etc.
Any other comments from council? So let's just go bullet point by bullet point. Does council want to default to state fines where applicable? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I hear it seen not yes. Okay. Bullet point 2. Does council want to consider raising non-state parking fines? If so, by how much? I say yes.
We do need to increase those because too many people take advantage.
I don't want to out myself, but as a college kid, I went to Ashland, Southern Oregon University. It was cheaper to get a parking ticket from the city than to pay for the permit in the lot.
Well,
So I would do that.
that is true. That's probably our biggest violation, in which has driven us to this point in place, is that Pacific has a $20 fee, as well as still your fee to get your parking spot, as well as other consequences if you don't pay. So you may not get your grades, you may not graduate. So they do have other consequences if they accumulate too many parking violations.
So did you have a recommendation of how much we should raise it, or?
Well, we're leaving up to council. I would think we would want to be a little bit greater than Pacific University, again, to get that compliance.
Like 30.
Occasionally, code enforcement, Lorenz does cite in the downtown area, but that's not a lot. Most of our violations are in the campus area.
I know there's an apartment,
No, you're fine.
I know there's an apartment building over by Wana that's no parking and it's full of cars. And I don't know if they just don't have enough parking in their parking lot or if it's more convenient for them to park on the street.
Okay, Councilor Schimmel first, then you.
Would you be in favor of being uniform with Pacific or working with them on something that is uniform?
My preference, if you're asking, would be $25. I think we need to be a little above. We do work with Pacific University on a regular basis, and we have a pretty close relationship with the university to include their security staff.
I just have a quick question. I know that we've in previous years we've done some parking analysis, and I'm wondering do we have currently any parking management agreements, or do we have a system for because it seems to me like an issue that you just brought up, Councilor Martinez, is that maybe folks don't know where existing parking is, where legal parking is, where you can park overnight because you don't want to park in a 2-hour zone.
Right. I think the chief can correct me if I'm mistaken, but if you go back to the fee schedule, Mariah, the one area that is, I don't want to say the biggest issue, but that is an issue is if you go to number 15, it's the overtime parking. So in the 2-hour zones, the 4-hour zones, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but those are kind of the areas where we're just wanting to see if we can get some increased compliance. In terms of the overall, there was a parking management plan or a parking management study, that was done. It was completed, I think, in 2023. What it generally showed is that there is sufficient parking, but if you do use some kind of limited demand strategies, you can circulate that parking, and that could have an actual positive effect on the amount of parking that is available. The other thing that kind of came out of that was if there was better signage to some of the city parking lots, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 city parking lots generally in that downtown area. including the one across from City Hall, that you could get increased use of those. They are generally a little bit further away than what some folks may prefer to park, but if you had better signage, you could also manage demand a little bit better that way. So.
So, Councilor Chief Brandman, you mentioned $25. I was really close. I was going to double it to 30. But which one of these, we talked about, matching with the city? Is it?
You mean matching the state?
Yeah, the state, excuse me.
State.
Which makes it kind of easy to, what?
No, to Mariah. Could you go to our options again? Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Where was I? Okay, so the ones that are not the state, when you're asking us, what to increase it by, can you mark which ones are not run by the state, and so we can kind of look at them? Because obviously, parking in a violation of disabled zone, that would be a big whopper.
Right.
But just to kind of give us an idea of which ones we'd have to look at.
Basically, like number 2, 3. Okay, go ahead. Number 2, number 3, number 13, obviously number 15, 16.
Those are city fines,
Right.
not administered by the state.
Right. I thought that was a question.
Yeah, that was the question.
That was the question, right. In 19, 20, 21, and other violations.
So I've heard.
So those would, if you adopted, let's say the 25 or $30, whatever council would want to do, those would all be that fee, the 25 or $30 fee. And what we would do under resolution is remove those other 10 from the fee schedule and just have it within code that state these will fall under state statute penalty.
If we're talking about the amount, I think somebody asked, I would double.
Okay, so I've heard $30 or 25 are the two amounts. Any discussion on those numbers? We need to pick one. 30. I think we have consensus with you all. $30.
Thank you for highlighting those.
Okay, so then if a new fee is implemented, discuss effective date to allow notification, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, or other. What typically is used, Chief?
I would think we would at least minimally want 60 days minimally to notify and do our educational pieces. It can be longer, but
We'll
I
go
don't know if we need to go to 120.
Yeah, Councilor Gustafson and then Councilor Martinez.
90, split down the middle.
Battery. I would say 90 because then school's back into session and that gives them time, those who have been here in the past, to understand what the new rules are.
Okay, I have two say 90, 3, 4. Okay, 90 days. And pending consensus, next step will be resolution at the June 23rd, 2025 meeting. Sounds good. Chief, do you have everything you need from us?
I do. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Okay, I'm going to adjourn this. Oops, sorry, Councilor Schimmel.
Just comments in addition to that. I think what was brought up about making the available parking more accessible, whether it's agreements with private lots and Pacific and altering the signage, whether it be after on these days or after hours, it's available, something of that nature, working on that.
That's on was that one of our council goals or objectives?
Yeah,
the parking.
demand management plan.
So yeah, let's get that scheduled on a work session okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to make sure. I'm going to adjourn this work session at 6:55. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Councilor Gustafson? Here. Council President Valenzuela?
I don't say anything, right? Anymore? We switched up.
Councilor Schimmel?
Here.
Councilor Falconer? Here. Councilor Martinez? Here. Counselor Marshall. Here. Mayor Wenzel.
Here. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the council and the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next up are proclamations. We'll start with Juneteenth. Whereas on June 19th, 1865, more than 2 years after the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, to spread the news that slavery in the United States had ended. And whereas June 19th was coined Juneteenth and became a time of joyous celebrations for freed slaves and their descendants, commemorated through family cookouts, faith services, music, storytelling, and the color red as a symbol of resilience. And whereas Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery, recognizing the high price Black Americans have paid for civil rights and equal access, and is an occasion to honor and reflect on the significant contributions of Black Americans to our nation. And whereas Juneteenth evolved into a way for Black Americans to pay homage to ancestors and celebrate Black culture, liberation, and achievements, living on to become the longest-running Black American holiday, with this year marking its 160th anniversary. And whereas the nationally recognized holiday is an opportunity to celebrate human freedom, reflect on the grievous and ongoing legacy of slavery, and rededicate ourselves to rooting out the systemic racism that continues to afflict our society as we strive to deliver full promise of freedom and equality for all Americans. Now, therefore, the City Council, as the City of Forest Grove, does hereby proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth in Forest Grove, Oregon, Washington County, and urges all citizens to become more aware of the significance of this celebration in Black history and in the heritage of our nation. It is our responsibility to ensure racial justice and equity in Forest Grove and the world. Our second proclamation is for Pride Month. Whereas Pride Month honors the resilience, diversity, and history of the LGBTQ+ community, celebrating the contributions of those who have fought bravely to live openly and authentically, and recognizing the ongoing struggle for equity, dignity, and justice for all. And whereas on June 28, 1969, a group of the poorest and most marginalized members of the LGBTQ+ community took a stand against a raid of the Stonewall Inn in Manhattan, sparking a global civil rights movement that continues to fight for equality to this day. And whereas Pride Month is an expression of queer joy, love, hope, and unity, a celebration of the community's contributions and accomplishments, and a time to join in recognizing both our shared humanity and the value of our differences. And whereas the Forest Grove City Council is committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and recognize the contributions of lesbian, gay, queer, intersex, asexual, and two-spirit individuals to the academic, artistic, civic, and economic success of our city. And whereas significant challenges still face LGBTQ+ community, including discriminatory legislation, violence, and systemic barriers that disproportionately impact Black, Indigenous, people of color, and transgender individuals, underscoring the need for continued work towards ending discrimination and prejudice. And whereas celebrating Pride Month raises awareness and provides support and advocacy for Forest Grove's LGBTQ+ community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim the month of June 2025 as Pride Month in Forest Grove, Oregon, and calls upon the people to respect, honor, and celebrate our diverse community and build a culture of inclusivity and acceptance. Thank you. Oh, I better turn. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public comments. Public comment is time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. Okay, our first public comment is Scott Kroll. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Is it already on? Or
I think, is it on the public? Perfect.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Scott Crowell, and I'm the president of Forest Grove Youth Baseball. I'm also a dad and a coach. And I've spent nearly every free hour over the past 4 years working to make sure any kid who wants to play baseball gets the chance, regardless of skill or financial situation. FGYB is a 100% volunteer-run nonprofit. No one gets paid. We prep the infields, level the dirt, line the fields, clean the dugouts. You name it, we do it. The Parks Department mows. But the playable surface, the dirt the kids actually compete on, is maintained 100% by our volunteers. Our registration fees are the lowest in Washington County, and they only cover 49% of our actual costs. The rest we make up through sponsorships and fundraising. 13% of our families receive scholarships. Most of those 13 is a full scholarship, including uniforms. And every player in our league lives within the Forest Grove School District. Mayor, the same kids you teach are the kids we coach. For them, this league is more than baseball. It's where they find confidence, support, and a sense of belonging. This is my last year leading this program. I want to leave it better than I found it. But if these proposed field use fees go into effect, we will be forced to raise registration fees by at least $100 for every player and may no longer be able to use city fields at all. For the first time in our program history, we'd be faced with cutting kids, not because they're not good enough, but because they won't have a place to play. We understand the city's financial pressures, but please do not put that burden on the kids in our community. These are your students, our neighbors, and the heart of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis Timmons.
Hi there, Mayor, City Council members. My name's Travis Timmons, and I'm a local youth parent and Forest Grove kid and coach and part of Forest Grove Youth Baseball. And listening to some of the goals for the cost recovery plan in the work session, I noticed you said stewards of taxpayer dollars, fairness and equity, managing resources thoughtfully. And by passing on fees to youth sports with your cost recovery plan, you're striking out on all three of those goals. Remind you of the last time field access was an issue. I grew up in Forest Grove playing at Bond Field and some of the fields near Lincoln Park. Some of you guys may share those memories. Great times. The city struck a deal. Pacific took over. Thatcher Park was a part of that. And here we are again looking at limited use on a park that was promised to us. As you guys stated in the work session, limited access to Pacific Fields due to their involvement on the fields. Limited access to the public pool. So what I see again is we find ourselves in the same situation. More fees, less access. Now with the current proposal, labeling youth sports organizations as exclusive and not common good, which I did hear some of the discussion and appreciate that from you guys, seems not only disheartening to all the volunteers who spend countless hours making sports available to all those who want to participate, but it positions yourselves in direct opposition of these organizations. The taxpayers who actually live here and support this community encourage you to sharpen your pencils and policies, like Councilman Schimmel said, and do what's right for the kids and get it right this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Water Street.
Hey everyone, my name's Katie Waterstreet. I hold many different hats and shirts, as you see right there. I am an adapted physical education specialist for the Forest Grove School District. I come in contact with pretty much every single student in this school district. They all want to play, but it takes money to play. I'm also a coach. I coach for FC West Soccer. I've coached for baseball. I'm also a coach's wife. My husband coaches swimming, and he coaches a Forest Grove Youth Water Polo Club, which our Park and Recs director did not know even existed until last week, and we've been around for a year. For us, for water polo, to have a chance to practice, it will cost us $400 for 2 hours, 1 day a week. Today at Field Day at Tom McCall, we had 5 kids and 1 parent come up to us. When do we get back in the water? We said, we don't know. We got to find the space and we got to find some money to get in. FC West Soccer. At any given time, 25% of our players have registration fees that are subsidized in some way. For some families, this looks like volunteering with us in lieu of payment. For others, this is simply a scholarship. This way, we are able to ensure that every kiddo in the community who wants to play soccer gets to play soccer. I see that with baseball also. We do everything we can to provide scholarships so that every kid can get a chance to play. If you increase our fees, you will start dismantling our youth sports. We fear not only with that the city might take over our youth sports that so many volunteers here have put a lot of grit into for many, many years. And Mayor Wenzel said it perfectly when she said, we are all a team. We all work together because we have done that for years. And I learned that when I moved here 18 years ago. Forest Grove is unique in that way.
Thank you. Elise Deschel. Sorry, thanks.
Hi, thank you. My name is Elise DiSabella, and I am a secretary with Forest Grove Youth Baseball. I also work with local sports teams here as well. I'm employed by a local sports team. And what I wanted to talk to you today about is everything that's already been said, but also leadership. Sports provides opportunities for our youth to become the future leaders. They learn social skills. They learn how to be team members. They learn how to be stewards of our community. They clean up after themselves. They help work the fields. They learn from us. And the message that we're sending to our youth is that money is more important than they are. The fees that have been proposed, which not all of you seem to be aware of, but I've seen copies of the paperwork, are astronomical. These organizations cannot afford them. We already have to go to the community multiple times per year, each organization, to fundraise. And the community gives generously, which allows us to provide opportunities for leadership for these young athletes. I urge you to reconsider the path you are on. It's okay to say that this is not the right solution. It's okay to say we need to stop and understand the fees before we make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Darren Ackerman. Right.
We'll try to do better. As city council members, your job is to essentially grab our tax money and figure out how we're going to spend it, right? So with a cost recovery plan, why are we recovering money from the same people that paid already once to do it again. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Essentially it's double taxation, but it's a fee rather than to tax. That doesn't make sense to me. And to ask another question, which you guys aren't going to answer, this gal said there's a lot of stress put on the civil servants that are working for scheduling and so on and so forth, right? That's literally what they get paid to do with our tax dollars. That's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Is to do what we need within our community and to fill that void, right? That's their job. And we pay them to do that job. So I don't understand the strife other than the workload might be too much. I get it. My workload's kind of hard building buildings too sometimes. But yeah, we need to do better for our children, and it doesn't need to be about money. And she also asked a question about fees is the big thing, huge thing, right? That's the elephant in the room. If it wasn't about money, we wouldn't be asking or proposing this at all, right? Like, it wouldn't be a thing. So if money truly isn't the problem or the issue, then we don't need to propose this at all, right? It is 100% about money, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's what she asked, is if that's all we want to know about is the fees, yeah, that's exactly what we want to know about. Money, it's all about money. Everything. This is the first city council meeting I've ever been to, and literally both topics have been about money. It's always about money. So, yeah, I don't know. I wish I could ask questions and you could answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jill Rulis.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jill Rulis, and I'm speaking today as a community member, a parent with kids in youth sports in Forest Grove, and the treasurer of our local swim club. I'm frustrated, not just by the cost recovery proposal itself, but by the lack of transparency and the unclear impact on the people actually running youth sports in Forest Grove. Because let's be honest, the city doesn't run these leagues. We do. They're run by small nonprofits, volunteer-led, who are scraping by with limited resources. Raising facility fees doesn't make the system more efficient. It just shifts the burden onto families, and families are already stretched. I looked into signing my kids up for 1 or 2 Forest Grove summer camps this week, and I couldn't even justify the cost to send one. That's not a luxury problem. That's a structural failure. When the cost of access rises, equity disappears. Kids are left out, not just of play, but of growth, belonging, and opportunity. And that's not theoretical, it's what's becoming and happening now. We need clarity, and we need collaboration. And most of all, we need a plan that keeps our fields, pools, and gyms open to all families, not just the ones who can afford the new fees that are being proposed. Please don't move forward with this until you've engaged the people actually holding this system together. We're not the problem. We're the partners that you need. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Fake. Oh, you're gonna have to restart your timer where I am. Please.
I wait.
I know. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Feig.
Mayor Wenzel, I know you have 30 minutes for this. May I have 3 minutes?
No, not
I
tonight.
thought you were going
Thank
to
you.
say no. Well, I just want to say I started Little League Baseball when I was 9 years old. I ended up playing 4 years of high school ball, 4 years of college ball. If it wasn't for baseball, I wouldn't be in the position I am right now. I'm a former teacher, started teaching in 1966, retired in 2000. It was my lifeline to what I am now. So I'd encourage you to take a look at your fees, take a look at your access, and make different decisions. I had to say that, even though I only got 2 minutes, which is totally appropriate. I already sent you an email, it had to do with protect our judges and why. So you got an email, there are active links in that, but you have a handout now. And I thought I better do what I asked you to do, so I did it. I called the numbers to call the Chief Justice Roberts. I did that, but they wouldn't take my call, so I wrote a letter, and it's included in the packet I just gave you. I called the Federal Judicial Center, same thing, so I wrote a letter, that's it. So, and I called my congressman, also let them know they need to protect the judges, what's happening for their protection and our protection. Whenever you hear anyone criticize the federal courts, explain their critical role in our system of government. It's so important. Also, the last thing on there that Robert Wright says is to show your gratitude to the judges, that 30 retired judges, they signed statements on that. I donated to that organization that has a link there. Please consider doing the same. It's very important that we protect our judges. We protect the people that protect us, our city police, all the other people, but we have to protect judges. Please take action as I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Allen.
I think we're all standing for our youth. And I think that I should say to you that that's important. They're more important than the dollar. I'm here because I'm sharing with you my testimony. And I've been sharing my testimony each time I come in. I've talked about love. I've talked about forgiveness. I've talked about how I've had to come out of some dark times. And now I'm talking about repentance. One of the things I've had to do when I started my walk of freedom was with forgiveness was to repent. Take ownership for my own mistakes and ask help from my Lord Jesus to not only forgive me, but to set me free from guilt and condemnation that I was carrying. In doing this, I was able to realize that it was the cost of Jesus for my freedom, what he did for me on that cross. He paid the price. And I needed that freedom. I had to take responsibility, even though I went through trauma with my dad. I had a responsibility to that too. My hate, I had to repent of. Acts 3:19 says, repent and then turn to God so that your sins may be wiped out and that time of refreshing may come from the Lord. Very important. Think about that.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone signed up on Zoom to give public comment? Oh, sorry. If you would like to give public comment and you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to indicate you're ready. Seeing none, we are going to move on to item C on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sure. Okay, we're not signed up. I'll just ask after.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I would just like to thank everybody here as well. I didn't realize how passionate and scrappy Forest Grove is. And our dedication to keep these sports accessible and the work that we all do is very honorable, exciting, and I feel pretty charged by the energy in this room. So I hope we keep it going. Being a newer club to the town, and all that work that we've done, Forest Grove Youth Lacrosse has the lowest registration fee in the entire state. We're the only team that provides equipment to our players. And we do that all with the donations that we receive from the community. And all of our hard work, given that my wife, the president of the club, has done, we have met capacity. And we are afraid that we're on a tipping point, that if we have to start registering for fees without the support of the school district, our club will have to dissolve. So I just want to also address the notion of exclusivity on the chart, that yes, we are renting these spaces for an exclusive event, but none of the clubs here exclude players. Okay, anybody who signs up plays. And that's kind of the excitement about it. They get coaching, they get friends, they get community, they get competition, they get fun, they get leadership, as was said before. So it's just really exciting, and I just, again, want to emphasize to everybody here, thank you for all that you are doing. I think Forest Grove is a very special place. I like to tell our kids whenever we go to a competition in Portland or Beaverton or somewhere else that we're just a scrappy bunch of kids from out west coming to show them what we got. And not to mention that the Forest Grove High School team won the Cascade Cup Championship over the weekend. So what we're doing is working, so we'll keep it up.
Can I get your first and last name?
Oh,
for
sorry. I'm
No, it's okay.
Matt Beal.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Kara, same last name?
Cara Lanning.
Yep.
Lanning. I apologize. I was babysitting. I am the president of Forest Grove Youth Lacrosse, and I'm passionate about this sport, and I am very thankful that everyone's here. I want to point out that lacrosse is, in its modern nature, exclusive and a rich man's sport. What we do in this town is different. We provide lacrosse, the first Native American sport on U.S. soil in southern Canada. We provide kids an opportunity to understand really important cultural information and knowledge about a sport that many people don't have access to. Jesuit and Lake Oswego won state championship this weekend because they have the means and resources for their kids to play lacrosse. We're trying to let our kids play lacrosse. It's a frickin' fun sport. It is so much fun. Imagine beating each other up with sticks, but with pads on, right? It's so fun. We cannot afford more fees, though. Our community, one, doesn't understand the sport because they've never been exposed to it before. And two, to gear a kid alone costs $400 to $600. Our club absorbs those fees, and we're proud of it. And we're going to keep doing it. But we cannot absorb the city's fees. This is not a for-profit organization that you're running. We should not be in the profit margin ever, because you are in charge of my money. I have a full-time job, and I volunteer 20 hours a week to this nonprofit organization. All of us do that. We don't get paid for the services we provide this community. And if you would like me to do a cost analysis of all the free labor that we are doing for your kids, I will be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to give public comment? Okay, come on up. State your name, first and last name for the record, please, when you come up. Thanks. I need another sheet.
My name is Liz Moore, and I really wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I actually hate this. But I'm here tonight mainly as a parent. I've had children involved in Forest Grove youth sports for the last 4 years. And that's nothing compared to the people sitting behind me and the people that have spoken today. I have 3 children. They're all 2 years apart. So that means that every sports season, I enroll 3 kids in sports. To raise the prices would impact us. And that is something that will impact other people even more. For comparison's sake, it's $65 to rent the picnic shelter at Thatcher Park, where I've held multiple of my kids' birthdays, because I am fortunate enough that at least one of them was born in summer. So I do between 0 to 3 facility rentals a year through the city of Forest Grove, and I register 3 kids every season for sports. So I think if we're looking at recouping costs somewhere, $65 is not a lot of money to rent a picnic shelter for 3 hours. I would gladly pay more for that as a one-off cost and be able to keep my kids in sport every season. I want to thank all the people that spoke before me. The effort that our volunteers put into this is incredible. I had the pleasure of coaching kindergarten soccer last fall, and the work that I put in on top of everything else cannot be overstated. And And so I just think that it's very important that we continue to do everything we can as a community to facilitate youth sports. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Seeing no hands and no one else signed up, I'm going to move on to item C on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will all be adopted with a single motion. I'm going to let you guys leave and I'll continue my script. It's fine. No worries, no worries. Thank you all for coming. Okay, so items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will all be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any item or items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
Move to approve consent agenda.
I second.
It was moved by Councilor Marshall and seconded by Councilor Martinez. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. The consent agenda is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 6-0 vote. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
No additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
Any proposed by council? Seeing none. Item E is presentations. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. A 2-minute reminder will be given to the presenter to conclude remarks. And we have an update about our 2040 plan, and our consultant, Ms. Sarah Singer-Wilson, is, I think, going to run that. So I will pass it over to her. She is on Zoom. Hello, Sarah.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just excited to share a quick update with you about the 2040 plan. So bear with me while I get my slides up here. Okay. So we are in the home stretch of putting the Forest Grove Forward vision together. This project has been underway for the last year, and just to give you a sense of the overall process, we are over here now to finalizing the vision and action plan. So starting but tomorrow, you will find online the public comment review period will be open, and we've done all of these steps, tons of community engagement and organization engagement, and have developed a draft vision, values, and goals. We went back out to the community and asked for more engagement after we had some of the goals assembled and had hosted vision labs throughout this last spring. And now we're finally to the most exciting part where we get to go back out and ask the community, did we get it right? And so I wanted to just highlight some opportunities where people could share with us their feedback. And so there will be on June 11th and June 18th interactive engagement at the farmers market. So you can look for opportunities both in English and Spanish to share your thoughts on the plan, get a preview of the city's new vision statement and values, and let us know if the goals and the supporting actions are meeting the mark, and share some thoughts on how those things get prioritized. We'll also have at the market on June 18th, we'll be working with our partners at Veritas to do some engagement with the Spanish-speaking community. And so looking forward to hearing feedback in Spanish as well on the 18th. For all of those who shared their email address throughout the process, so if you responded to the community survey and said you wanted to stay in touch, if you attended and participated in a vision lab, if you're a part of a board or commission or the steering committee, you'll be receiving an email directing you to that survey and giving you information about these events. As I mentioned, the online survey will be available. You can find it on the city's social media outlets or through the city's website. And you'll also be able to, if you want to dig deeper and learn more about the Forest Grove forward visioning efforts, you'll be able to review the draft vision action plan on the website and And so, yeah, we're just really excited to hear if this is truly reflective of what the Forest Grove community wants to see for their future. And with that, just wanted to see if there are any questions before I talk about the next steps.
Okay, any questions on this portion of the presentation? Sarah, I have one question. Is our communications team going to be with you at the farmers market, or who's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there'll be some members from the SSW team and some members from city staff.
Okay, great. That was the only question I had. So I think we can
Okay.
keep moving on.
Yeah, so next steps, we have the community review period will be open through the 22nd of June. We'll be checking in with our steering committee on June 17th, so anybody's welcome to attend that if you want more information. On June 23rd, we'll be coming back to the council for a more in-depth presentation. And so council, as you start to look at the goals and actions, be gathering your questions, and we look forward to addressing all of those on the 23rd. And then we'll make any final adjustments based on, we'll also be presenting to you a summary of comments from the community review period and any recommendations for updates to the plan. And then we'll get it ready for your final adoption, hopefully on July 14th.
Are you ready for more questions, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Schimmel.
Sarah, I just want to reiterate again, just the process you've taken, particularly to ensure underrepresented voices are heard, has just been phenomenal. And my concern is how we ensure those voices are still represented at this particular point, given the national fever pitch we're in. And I hear from Latino constituents that, you know, they go to work, they go home, they eliminate any other interaction. There's just this constant looming threat of deportation. So, and while we don't want to slow progress on this, that's going to be a particularly hard thing, even for a seasoned consultant to do. So it may require a different tactic or just some time for that to hopefully calm down or alleviate itself. So, but I want to make sure that's just, we recognize that if we're not getting enough voices and the leaders of those institutions, to me, aren't sufficient, we need to get to the voices that represent a third of our population. So that's just a sensitive area. I'm sure Councilor President Valenzuela would echo if she were here.
Thank you, Councilor Schimmel. Yes, we'll proceed as we currently have planned, and then report back to the council how those efforts go, and if we need to make any adjustments, we can have that discussion at that meeting on the 23rd. So hopefully we'll have some good engagement results, and look forward to sharing those with the council here soon.
When you bring those engagement results back to the council, can you give us some metrics about the engagement because, you know, the steering committee, I think, deserves some credit as well of like holding the city accountable to engaging all members of our community and saying, hey, we're not going to go forward because we haven't got the survey results and we haven't reached out to our Latin community. So I just want to like add that the steering committee really was vital, and those are volunteers showing up. But I guess that's kind of what I want to know moving to this process is like, what was the percentage of people who responded during the initial survey and feedback? And then this refinement, what is that percentage? Because that can help guide us, right? If we're not really getting that, the engagement we want, then we can do what we did last time and say like, hey, we need to do more work here.
Yeah, I will preface the community review period. Sometimes the engagement is lighter. So I do want to kind of manage expectations with that, because people are like, yep, looks great. And we engaged the first time. So, but you will be able to compare the percentage results. So we'll have we have some demographic questions in the survey itself, which were similar to the first online survey. And then at the in-person events, while it's hard to capture demographic data when people are live at an event and shopping for, their local produce, as well as maybe answering a few of our questions. They're usually not willing to sit for a full demographic survey, but we do have some ways to capture some of that information so that you can get us. And we've also coached the Veritas consultants on trying to gather, roughly age information and race and background, as well as they're doing their engagement at the market. So we'll have some data to present to you, but it may look a little bit different than what you saw in the initial round of engagement when we were able to gather much more of that.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Yep. Seeing none. So we look forward to seeing you on the 23rd.
Sounds great. Likewise.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye, Sarah. Okay, we are ready to move on to all the stuff. So we're going to move on to our public hearings, ordinances, and resolution. I will now open the public hearing on resolutions 2025-24, 2025-25, and 2025-26. If approved by the City Council, these resolutions will adopt the budget, levy taxes, and make appropriations for the 2025-2027 biennial budget year. Do any councilors have a conflict of interest to declare? City Manager Jesse Vanderzanden and Assistant Finance Director Sally Sacerci, thank you, will now present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, making sure. Give me a moment here. So Paul Downey couldn't be with us tonight, so I am doing the presentations on the budget, and I have Sally Sacerci with me. She has access to the system and all the numbers, so if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to try and answer those questions as they come up. So as the mayor mentioned, the public hearing is now open on 3 resolutions. Those 3 resolutions are 2025-24, which adopts the biennial budget. The second resolution is 2025-25, which categorizes and levies taxes for the city of Forest Grove for the budget period beginning July 21st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027. And then the last resolution is making appropriations for the city of Forest Grove and for the biennial budget. And those appropriations are made under each of the specific funds that are listed in the resolution. These funds go all the way from the legislative and executive fund, the contingencies, transfers, municipal court, non-departmental, and those are listed in your resolution as well. My staff report will be relatively short. There was an informational meeting with the budget committee. The budget committee, of course, is composed of 7 residents and the 7 councilors. And then there was 3 budget committee meetings following that informational meeting. The budget committee passed the proposed biennial budget on May 28th, 2025 in the amount of $255 million, $255,001,742 for that biennial budget, which covers the budget period between 2025 and 2027 to be official. The council needs to adopt that biennial budget this evening. There are a couple changes to the biennial budget. I'd like to just go over those with you briefly. There are 3 funds that will increase the budget, the total budget, by $24,000 to $255,025,742. The City Council can increase expenditures for an individual fund by 10% of the amount approved by the Budget Committee without having to reconvene the Budget Committee. The change is within that 10% limit. The change involves a correction to GIS storage and management services. Staff made a partial part of the change with the Budget Committee, but now the change needs to be completed. The change to the sewer fund was not made in the first year of the biennium, and the second year change was not made. In the sewer fund, professional services would be increased by $48,000 for the charges for both years. To keep the sewer fund in balance, interest income would be increased by $24,000, and the unappropriated ending fund balance would be decreased by $24,000. In the water fund, professional services would need to be increased by $24,000 for the second year. while unappropriated ending fund balances would be decreased by $24,000 to keep that funded balance. And last change would be in the Light and Power Fund. Professional service would be increased by $36,000 for the second year, while the unappropriated ending fund balance would be decreased by $36,000 to keep that fund in balance. If there's any questions on resolutions, the three resolutions in front of you, I'd be happy to try and entertain those now. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Jesse. Does the council have any questions for staff? Is your hand raised? No. Sorry, I didn't know if it was. Okay, I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the resolutions. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city of residence for the record. Anyone wishing to testify who's a proponent? Anyone on Zoom? I don't see anyone. Okay. Anyone wishing to comment who's an opponent? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to provide other testimony? Okay. There's no comments to respond to, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Is there a motion from the council to approve the resolution?
So move.
Second.
Resolution 2025-24 through 26 has been moved by Councilor Schimmel and seconded by Councilor Falconer. Is there any additional questions, discussions from the council? I would just like to say thank you. I mean, I know he's not here, but I'm pretty sure he'll watch it. He's dedicated like that. This is a huge lift for our assistant city manager, finance director, and then Sally came in and helped out and went over and beyond her role to really give the city our first 2-year, budget. And I just want to say thank you to Sally and thank you especially to Paul, and then everyone else who did it. But it's like a huge job, and I think I'm just really grateful. So those are my only statements.
We should also just thank the budget committee for all their hard work. I think they did a really great job. They asked some really good questions. I think everyone enjoyed the process, and that's, I think, budget committee meetings aren't necessarily super jazzy,
Sure.
but they were great.
Yeah, good reminder. The budget committee was great too. And that's the first time ever in my 10 years on city council that I've heard someone characterize enjoying the budget meetings. So that's a win. I mean, Paul's going to like that too. Okay, any other discussion, questions? Okay, will the city manager please read the resolution by title only?
There's 3 resolutions. I'll read them in consecutive order. Resolution number 2025-24. That's a resolution adopting the biennial budget for the period commencing July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027. The second resolution is resolution number 2025-25, and that's a resolution levying and categorizing taxes for the city of Forest Grove, Washington County, Oregon, for the biennial budget period commencing July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027. And the third resolution is resolution number 2025-26. That's a resolution making appropriations for the city of Forest Grove, Washington County, Oregon, for the biennial budget for the period commencing July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027.
Thank you, Jesse. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Counselor Gustafson?
Yes.
Counselor Schimmel?
Yes.
Counselor Falconer?
Yes.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, the vote is 6-0. Resolutions 2025-24, 2025-25, and 2025-26 are approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you. I will now open the public hearing on resolutions 2025 through 27 and 2025 through 28. If approved by the City Council, these resolutions will certify the services the city will provide and declare the city's election to receive state revenues. Do any city councilors have a conflict of interest to declare? Seeing none. Jesse Vanderzanden and Sally Seserci will now present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This also was considered by the Budget Committee over the same meetings that I mentioned earlier. And the Budget Committee did recommend the use of state revenue sharing program and also certifying the services that they would be used for. By way of background, in order to receive state revenue sharing, the city is required by the state annually to elect to participate in the state revenue sharing program and to certify the services that those funds would be used for. The attached resolutions fulfill the requirement of certifying these services provided by the city and electing to receive state revenues for fiscal year 25-26. This certification needs to be completed annually, even though the city has started doing a biennial budget process. Before the city can participate in the state revenue sharing program, the city is required to hold 2 hearings on the use of the funds. The Budget Committee meeting of May 13th, 2025 was one of those hearings, and the second is occurring tonight. For fiscal year 25-26, the city is projected to receive $432,244 in alcohol tax revenue, $16,039 in cigarette tax revenue, $38,603 in state marijuana tax revenue, $285,281 in state revenue sharing, and lastly, $2,208,794 in state gasoline tax revenue. As required by state law, the state gas tax is distributed 99% to the street fund and 1% to the bikeways and pedestrian fund. If the city decided not to accept state shared revenue, the fiscal impact would be in total $772,167, not counting the state gas tax money. Staff recommends the City Council approve the attached resolution so the city can receive state shared revenues for fiscal year 25 and 26.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now call on persons who have signed up to comment on the resolutions. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Are there anybody who would like to testify in favor? Seeing none. Any opposed? Any other comments? Seeing none. The hearing is now closed. Is there a motion from council to approve the resolutions?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Schimmel moved and Councilor Martinez seconded the motions. Are there any additional questions or discussion from council? Nope. Seeing none. Will the city manager read the resolutions by title only?
There's 2 resolutions. The first resolution is resolution number 2025-27. That's a resolution certifying services provided by the city of Forest Grove. The second resolution is resolution number 2025-28, and that's a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Councilor Schimmel?
Yes.
Councilor Falconer?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes, the vote is 6-0. Resolutions 2025-27 and 2025-28 are approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you. Now, moving on. Yeah, I might want to double check something. So this one's
There's no public hearing for item 3, but the following one has to have a public hearing. But
sorry, can you start over? I was reading something.
There's no public hearing for item F3, but item F4 does have one. It just can't be voted on until F3 is voted on. So it's a little out of order.
Yeah, but I'm doing this. Okay, I think I'm good. Thank you. So we're going to move on to item 3 on the agenda, resolution 2025-29, adopting fiscal year 2025 through 30 capital improvements program. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Jesse Vandersanen.
So the capital improvements program for 2025-2030 was approved by the Budget Committee, and it now needs to be adopted by the City Council. The CIP, or the Capital Improvement Program, forms the basis of the capital projects that the city is planning to accomplish over the next 5 years. Projects funded by SDC funds or System Development Charge funds need to be listed in the CIP for the system development charge funds to be expended on those projects. The CIP was presented to and approved by the Budget Committee, and staff is not proposing any changes to this CIP. Staff recommends the City Council approve the attached resolution adopting the 2025-2030 Capital Improvements Program, and I'd be happy to accept any questions if you have.
Okay, great. Any questions for staff? Seeing none. I go to discussion next. Yeah. Any discussion from council? Seeing none. Will the city manager please read this by title only? Which I didn't do a motion.
I'll move to approve
Okay, thanks.
the resolution 2025.
Okay. Resolution 2025-29 was moved by Councilor Falconer and seconded by Councilor Gustafson. Now will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution number 2025-29, resolution adopting the 2025 to 2030 Capital Improvements Program.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Schimmel,
Yes.
Counselor Falconer,
Yes.
Counselor Martinez,
Yes.
Counselor Marshall,
Yes.
Counselor Gustafson,
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel.
Yes. Resolution 2025-29 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 6-0. Moving on to Resolution 2025-30. Hang on. I will now open the public hearing on Resolution 2025-23. If approved by the City Council, this resolution will adopt the Capital Improvements Program excise tax for the 2025-2027 biennial budget year. Do any of the councilors have a conflict of interest to declare? Seeing none. City Manager Jesse Vanderzanen and Assistant Finance Director Sally Cerrucci will now present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a moment here. Okay, there we go. Resolution 2025-30 is regarding the Capital Improvements Program excise tax. By way of background, the CIP, or what's called the Capital Improvements Program, which is CIP, excise tax was initiated in 1990. It needs to be reauthorized by resolution each fiscal year, so this will also be on the agenda next year, even though we have a biennial budget. The CIP excise tax was initiated in 1990, and the city code restricts the use of the revenue generated by this excise tax to the general government and public safety programs within the CIP. The code requires the tax to be reviewed on an annual basis by the Budget Committee and to be approved each year by the City Council. If the tax is not reauthorized, the city cannot collect the revenue. Any increase in the CIP excise tax cannot exceed 5% in 1 year, and increases added together cannot exceed 20% over a 5-year period. The tax is not covered by the annual fee adjustment for general fees. That will come before the council at the next meeting. The city last increased the CIP excise tax on July 1st, 2014. Staff is not proposing any fee increase for this year. The city expects to collect about $406,000 in revenue from the CIP excise tax in fiscal year 25-26. By ordinance, 90% of the excise tax is used to fund public safety capital needs. The city uses these funds for police and fire vehicle replacements. The remaining 10% can be used in general government programs. In fiscal year 25-26, $372,830 will be transferred to other funds for the purchase of police vehicles and fire apparatus. Other proposed expenditures include $8,900 for a remodel of the fire department's lobby, $12,300 for a control module for the body-worn camera system for police, $75,000 for the replacement of Rogers Park's carousel, and $9,500 for an aquatic center security camera upgrade. If the CIP excise tax is not renewed, the city will need to find an alternative source of revenue for the police vehicles and the fire apparatus replacement. Also, some of the other projects would not be funded if this revenue would go away. That concludes the staff report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to field them now.
Sounds good. Any questions for Jesse? Seeing none, I will now call on persons who have signed up to comment on the resolution. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city of residence for the record. Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone wanting to provide other comments? Seeing none. The hearing is now closed. Is there a motion from the council to approve Resolution 2025-30?
So moved.
Okay, the resolution was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Councilor Marshall. Will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution number 2025-30, resolution adopting the Capital Improvements Program excise tax and repealing resolution 2024-23.
Thank you. I did forget to offer an opportunity for the council to discuss it before reading it by title only. So is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Falconer.
Yes.
Counselor Martinez.
Yes.
Counselor Marshall.
Yes.
Counselor Gustafson.
Yes.
Counselor Schimmel.
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel.
Yes. The vote is 6-0. Resolution 2025-23 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Isn't it supposed to be 3-0? It's resolution 2025-30 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Okay. Now moving on to item 5, which is resolution 2025-3. Oh, I don't have to say all this stuff. Okay, can I have our community development department come on up, please? Hello, Dan. How are you?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Dan Reardon, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department. And with me this evening is Community Development Director Brian Pohl. So this topic is related to the TV Highway Bus Rapid Transit project. It's regarding the need to adopt an intergovernmental agreement. I have a PowerPoint presentation to go over the particulars. So on May 12, 2025, City Council approved Resolution 2025-17, endorsing a locally preferred alternative for the TV Highway Bus Rapid Transit project. And I do want to point out that moving forward, the project will be referred to as the TV Highway Transit and Safety Project. So there's a little shift in naming, nothing substantive. It just indicates it as a broader safety improvement project as well as providing some transit improvements. So approval of the LPA resolution back on May 12th provided a basis for advancing the project into the next phase called project development. And now that the LPA is approved, TriMet is asking that each partner jurisdiction adopt a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement for project development. And I'll get into more of what that actually means. Next slide, please. If the resolution is adopted by City Council, the city manager will have authorization to sign the IGA on the city's behalf. And adopting the resolution also indicates the City Council consents to the IGA terms, including the proposed funding and staffing from the city to support the project. The IGA describes the obligations of both TriMet and the city during the project development phase. TriMet's obligations include project management as the lead agency for the project development phase. TriMet will also be responsible for completing work products required for the federal Small Starts Capital Investment Grant application to the Federal Transit Administration. And TriMet will be obligated to review consultant work related to civil engineering drawings and environmental reviews. And Metro will actually be taking a lot of will be taking the lead on the environmental process. TriMet obligations also include leading the public engagement efforts during the project development phase, coordinating project partners and processing issue resolution, coordinating selection of contractors for construction. Slide, please. Now into the city's obligations. The city obligations include a cash contribution of $75,000 over 2 fiscal years, $25,000 for fiscal year 2026, and $50,000 for fiscal year 2027. The source of the cash contribution will be the transportation development tax. The other partner jurisdictions will also be making a request to Washington County to allow for the use of transportation development tax revenue for the cash contribution. And this project is eligible for using transportation development tax revenue. In addition to the cash contribution, there will be in-kind support from the city for the project.
We estimate that there will be about 227 hours of staff time needed to support the project during the next 2 fiscal years. That translates into a total amount of about $27,640 for staff support. The source of funds for the in-kind support will be the general fund, and this is included in the personal services budget for the planning division. So it's funding for just general planning. City obligations also include participation on advisory committees, supporting public engagement efforts, and reviewing technical documents and civil engineering drawings. In addition, the city is also a permitting entity for the project because part of the project will run using city right-of-way. The portion of the project west of Quint Street to the B Street terminus in downtown Forest Grove is city right-of-way. So there will be some permits that will be required, and the city will review those permit applications. TriMet will reimburse the city for processing the permits, and we estimate that the approximate estimated amount of reimbursement will be $5,000. Please. The IGA includes standard conditions for project accounting, issue resolution, indemnification, agreement termination, and notification. One area that was still being reviewed was mutual indemnification, where both the city and TriMet would provide indemnification if there are any issues related to the work that's done. The partner jurisdictions recommended that the indemnification continue beyond the expiration of the agreement. TriMet was reviewing that language, and I just heard today that they have agreed to that language. That's included in the IGA for your review this evening, and so that issue was one loose end that had to be tied up, and that has been completed. The IGA also includes several exhibits, the project description and map. That's what the City Council approved back on May 12th with the locally preferred alternative. Exhibit B is the overall general project funding strategy. Exhibit C provides more detail on the project development funding and the staffing plan, including roles and obligations among all of the various project partners. Exhibit D is the project development work plan, and Exhibit E is the guiding principles for the project moving forward. I'll go through all of these hopefully fairly quickly. Next slide, please. So again, this is the map that and description that the City Council saw back on May 12th when you approved the locally preferred alternative. Next slide. Exhibit B is the project funding strategy. The total estimated project cost, including construction, is about $300 million. The intended funding source is the Federal Transit Administration through a capital investment small starts program grant. The local and regional match will be about $100 million, and the total state match will be $50 million. Exhibit C identifies the project development and staffing plan for all of the project partners. As you can see on the slide, on the chart, the regional contribution will be about $6 million. That's Metro Regional Flexible Funds. TriMet will provide $8.9 million to the project, and Forest Grove will provide the $75,000 cash contribution. In total, the project development phase is expected to cost just over $25 million. Exhibit D is the project development work plan. It identifies the work products that will be completed, includes a schedule, and again, it includes the partners' roles and responsibilities. Project development work products include the environmental review, approvals, doing engineering and design documents. Metro will be updating the regional transportation plan to update the regional plan based on the outcomes from the project development phase, and then there will be the federal grant application that TriMet will put together and submit to the Federal Transit Administration. Project development is expected to take 2 years with completion in late 2027. And again, partner roles and responsibilities include participating on advisory committees, supporting public engagement, reviewing work products, and issuing permits. This is the last exhibit to the IGA. It's the project guiding principles. It really addresses in general terms how the funding commitments will be implemented, how community feedback will be collected, how businesses will be supported during the construction phase of the project, and will also identify TriMet's commitment to enhancing opportunities for small business by contracting and workforce training. TriMet has committed to working with SBE and DBE businesses as the project moves forward. And then the project guiding principles also include ensuring multi-jurisdictional coordination as we move forward.
So the IGA has gone through several reviews by each project partner. The IGA, this before you this evening, was reviewed by the city attorney, and the city attorney endorses the IGA. And I just want to point out that through this process, TriMet has been very receptive to suggested changes requested by the partner jurisdictions, primarily related to just clarifying terms, clarifying roles and responsibilities and obligations. So TriMet has been a good partner through this process. And so staff recommends, next slide please, that the City Council approve the resolution granting authority to the city manager to enter into an IGA with TriMet related to project development, funding, and staffing for the TV highway transit and safety project. Concludes the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions council might have at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Councilor Schimmel.
Well, thank you, Dan. I'm in favor of the resolution. I didn't see reference to the intersections with our local ODOT projects, but I trust between myself, you, Brian, our interaction at the committee level that will reinforce those intersections, particularly around the U Street project.
Yes, and yes, there will be 3 committees that will be established through project development phase. There will be the community advisory committee, there will be a technical committee, there will be a project and budget committee, and there will be staff from all of the partner jurisdictions, including ODOT, and there will be representatives from the city that will be involved through those committees, so we can make sure that we include that discussion.
And if the mayor would permit, since we're on the subject, and I mentioned you entered you into the public record, is just today I was one of maybe a dozen eyewitnesses to a near fatal accident at U Street when a person in a wheelchair was trying to cross, and all the cars up the right lane stopped, and on the left lane it nearly or could have hit him. So it's just, if it reinforces the imperative of that project and getting it right, and hopefully sooner than later. But that's that. Just people are prone to doing unexpected things, and I'm sure there's already a record of serious accidents there, and it was just sad to see a near fatal one today.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions for staff? What's the wish of the council? Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do
We did it at the same time.
Yeah.
So mine is the second. and
Okay.
hers-
Counselor Falconer made the motion and Counselor Martinez seconded resolution 2025-31. Any discussion on this? I think, I echo Counselor Schimmel's comments and just say, thank you to staff. And there's been a few different liaisons on that committee, and it's been a long time. So it's nice to see some action moving forward with that, because there's a lot of safety improvements that need to happen along TV highway. So those are my only comments. Okay, can we do a roll call vote, please, Mariah? Thank you.
Counselor Martinez?
Yes.
Counselor Marshall?
Yes.
Counselor Gustafson?
Yes.
Counselor Schimmel?
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner?
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel?
Yes. Forest Grove City Council approves resolution 2025-31 with a 6-0 vote. Thank you, Dan, for your presentation. And now we're going to move on to council communications. Councilor Valenzuela is not here, so we'll go to Councilor Falconer. Are you good to go?
Sure.
Okay.
I actually don't have anything to report other than I was grateful to see the Historic Landmarks Board. I don't know if you all saw them at the farmers market this last week, but they were there in force, letting people know about a Windows workshop. And I'm sorry, I actually didn't write the date down. But please do check it out. Look at our website. I'm pretty sure we've posted it there. It's a Windows workshop that they'll be putting together. So
Good morning.
it is well. But they'll. I think anyway. They were. If you saw them at the farmers market, some of them were dressed in sort of antique costumes. It was very fun. But they're looking for participants for that. And I will have to excuse myself in person for our next meeting. But if I can,
I don't think you should plan on
will attend by remote.
Yeah, I'm not thinking you must. I mean, it's going to be a very large time difference, so no. Thank you. Councillor Gustafson.
I don't have a lot to comment on. I did go to the Water Consortium meeting, and pretty much we voted on officers, and then we had a presentation about water filtration systems, which was really quite interesting. So this company named Shelterbox, they do these water filtration systems that they send to other countries who need their water to be more purified because everybody gets sick if they drink the water. So it was very detailed presentation and very informative. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Marshall.
You guys have already heard from the Parks and Rec. We'll have another meeting with them next week. So and the forestry. So I don't have anything else to say.
Great, thank you. Councillor Martinez.
I don't have anything to report this evening.
Sweet. Councillor Schimmel.
The only thing noteworthy was attending a workshop by the West Valley Habitat and Chamber of Commerce showcasing minority and women-owned local contracting businesses, and I got a lot of business cards that I can hand over to the development team. I think it'd be useful for some of our grant program. So there's a lot of local contractors that are looking for work. And I want to thank Councilor Falconer for taking over the reins at the chamber, just because of work obligations picking up. Thank you.
I found the date, June 21st. Sorry about that. It's here at the community auditorium for that historic window workshop. Please, if you are interested in not getting all new windows, but maybe learning a little bit about how to protect and make your own windows more efficient, that is a really good place to stop. 9 to 12.
Perfect. Thank you. Jesse, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Not much to report. There's just been a lot of getting prepped for the budget in tonight's meeting. One update that I do have, however, is there's been some ongoing discussion about the opinion from the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. There is no official guidance out yet, so to speak, but it is being talked about quite a bit in quite a few circles, and I do expect some type of guidance out, either from the LOC or from our own city attorney here shortly. So more to follow on that.
Great. Go ahead, Councillor Schimmel.
Yeah, question for city managers. Who's going to Omaha? Who's going to Omaha?
The Beavers.
Good weekend for the Beavs. Okay, I just have a few things I think to report on. Today was a real busy day. I'm just going to talk about today. Right now I'm so tired, that's all I can remember. So I did the Coin News does Mayor's Monday. It's early morning, 7:30. Just a 5-minute interview. So I plugged a few things, the 2040 vision, summer recreation for youth, and then economic, like URA economic incentives, and then ask people to come visit Forest Grove this summer. And, it was a really good time. And then during lunch, I attended the WCCC meeting, the action item. The only action item we voted on was, and it was a unanimous vote, to give funding to support the TV Highway bus rapid transportation planning project. Metro presented on a climate action plan. They're going to have their draft plan by the summer and then be soliciting community feedback. And I then had to leave early because we were on a different schedule. And then after school at 3:30, I attended the Washington County Chair plus Mayor meeting where we went over the levies that they're going to put on the ballot for November, which include the public safety levy and then the library levy. We spent most of our time discussing the library levy. Cliff note version is that with the new metrics and the analysis of the consultant, the overall feeling in the county is that some libraries are, I'm just going to be blunt because I'm exhausted. I can't really cut it any other way. Some libraries are going to win with this new, what would you call it, like metrics, this new funding mechanism.
New funding formula.
Some are What?
It's a new funding formula.
Yeah, it's a new mechanism formula. Okay, great. So I'm not too bad. But with this new funding formula, like we would actually receive more funding, but the city of Beaverton would lose funding, like a considerable amount of funding. You know, Mayor Beatty, who I like a whole lot and enjoy working with her, she's like, yeah, I'm sure, Mayor Wenzel in Forest Grove's not going to talk poorly against it. And I said, I actually disagree. I'm hoping that the board of Washington County Board of Directors that works to figure out a mechanism where some libraries don't go in the red and don't have to cut, because what I said to the whole group was it doesn't benefit any of us to cut one out for the profit of the other. And frankly, I don't know how, and I said this, I was like, I don't know why Lacey would be in favor of this or ask her voters in Beaverton to support this levy. Like, it's really hard to ask for more money, more taxes, and then cut and less services. I think it's kind of wild. And so hopefully they do more work on that, because I just don't know how that's going to. And then another discussion topic was what's going on in LA today with the National Guard being called in. And I didn't realize that was actually legal. That was legal to do. They're staying in, and just some information I received is that they're staying on federal buildings, not really providing food and different things. But I'm just bringing this up because there are different rallies planned this weekend, and I think there's a fear on some people's. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna say it. There's a little bit of a fear that if someone thinks like, hey, there's safety, or like then they're gonna call people in, and it can happen legally, and then declare martial law. Like, so just kind of keep in mind if I'm just giving that information out just as something to think about. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, so that's all. That's my only mayor's report. I feel like I'm forgetting lots of things, but it will be what it is. Okay, I'm going to adjourn the city council meeting, but we have another meeting right after this. Meeting adjourned. A call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. The time is 8:24. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Counselor Gustafson? Here. Counselor Schimmel?
Here.
Counselor Falconer? Here. Counselor Martinez? Here. Counselor Marshall?
Here.
Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Thank you. Public comments. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the URA board on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of directors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option and be called on. Anyone wishing to give public comment? Seeing none. No additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No presentations. So item F1 is public. Oops, I better get my script out. Is public hearing URA resolution 2025-05. Let's get my. I will now open the public hearing on URA resolution 2025-05. If approved by the Urban Renewal Agency, this resolution will adopt the URA budget for the 2025-2027 biennial budget year. Do any directors have a conflict of interest to declare? Seeing none, City Manager Jesse Vanderzanden and Assistant Finance Director Sally Cerci, geez, I'm so sorry, will now present the staff report. Does the board have any questions for staff? Oh, wait, nope, went too far. Let's go back to the staff report.
Oops. Thank you, Chair and Directors. I'll wait for Sally here for a moment. So the resolution in front of you today is 2025-05, and it adopts the biennial budget for the Urban Renewal Agency of Forest Grove. It makes appropriations and it declares the tax increment for the same biennial period. The Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee approved the Forest Grove Urban Renewal Agency budget on May 28th, 2025, in the amount of $3,951,081. They also declared the tax increment to be collected. The Urban Renewal Agency Board now needs to adopt the fiscal year 25-27 biennial approved budget, make the appropriations that set the legal expenditure level, and declare the tax increment to be collected for the same biennial period. Staff has prepared a resolution that includes all three actions for the board's consideration. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those now. Otherwise, that concludes staff's report.
Okay, now it's time for questions. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will now call on persons who signed up to comment on the resolution. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city of residence for the record. Are there anybody signed up to speak in favor? Opposed? To provide any other comment? The hearing is now closed. Is there a motion from the board to approve the resolution?
Move. I'll second.
Thank you. The resolution was moved by Councilor Marshall, seconded by Councilor Gustafson. Let's make sure I'm in the right order. Are there any additional questions or further discussion from the board on the motion before we proceed with the roll call vote? Councilor Schimmel.
Yeah, just following up on a memo I sent to my colleagues, and I don't know if this is just a level set, a consensus, or a separate motion. But if you recall, the EDC has, as part of the prior budget, had provided recommendations on grant submissions, and so I assume they would continue to do that in this new budget season. But I also want to suggest that we direct that advisory commission to provide recommendations on the procedure itself, where we want to enhance or improve the information to the benefit of applicants, business owners and property owners. And that's based on interviewing some of the applicants from this last year and seeking greater detail in the process up front. So I think the EDC would be the appropriate avenue for enhancing that and recommending improvements to that procedure.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So you're looking for consensus to have EDC work to kind of evaluate or assess
to serve
and
as
then revise?
to serve as the advisory on that process, since they already make recommendations on the applications themselves, asking them to advise us on the procedure as well.
So what's the timeline?
There's no timeline.
I'm wondering the timeline for the next application.
So the building improvement grants, there's $350,000 in the URA budget for the building improvement grants for this next fiscal year. And the way it was administered last year was the application period stayed open between July 1st through December 31st. The reason the application period was so long is it also allowed applicants the opportunity to get a design grant if they wanted to as well, and in doing so then have enough time to get it designed and then apply for an actual building grant. After that, they did go to the EDC, as Councilor Director Schimmel mentioned, and the recommendations came to, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I think the recommendations came to the council in March, and the thought was to have the grants awarded by April, May, so that the building owners could start construction during the summer season. So that was the general timeline. So 6-month application period, the 3-month consideration period this past year that included both EDC and the board, and then the award period would be in April/May. And that would also inform the next budget year, because if not as much money was appropriated that was budgeted for it, there could be an adjustment during the budget process. That was also the thought.
Any discussion on Councilor Schimmel's suggestion? I mean, I would like to see, and I just don't know exactly how to articulate it to the advisory commission, but I would like to see if we're meeting the goals of increasing, the assessment, right, the tax value, and like making it, I mean, if we're like doing the things we want to do, like I thought that was, I don't know, I'm always down for a little bit of improvement. I just don't know exactly how to carry that out.
Are you trying to see if the taxes have gone up and businesses up down?
Well, no, we're like trying to see if like the types of building improvements, like what building improvements are the best to meet the goals. Like, what do we need to, right? Is that what you're trying to do? No, I'm wrong. Never mind. Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
In my interviews with applicants and other business or property owners, there's information lacking in our procedure that would either attract more applicants or better inform, because in terms of both what's an eligible project or what is the general timeline, because they're investing their time and energy, or they're holding off projects because waiting for our answer. So
is that clearing up the process that we currently have?
It's just a process, constant process improvement that this EDC seems to be the appropriate commission to provide those recommendations to us, and it's as it's needed if they think something is material enough that they want to propose. And it sounds like, based on the general timeline through the course of the fiscal year, that doing it early, it could start as early as this Thursday when the EDC meets again to introduce that.
I guess my only question would be are they on board with this process change?
Well, because generally they need something to do.
Oh,
I mean, the recent thing was the EOA. So, and since they're going to be an integral part of reviewing those applicants, really digging into the procedure and seeing what's missing as business owners themselves, I think helpful to take advantage of that intelligence, especially since we're taking.
If I could maybe offer something just in tandem with that. I know staff is in the process now, pending passage of this resolution tonight, to start to open and market the program on July 1st. And so it sounds like there's an EDC meeting prior to July 1st about process. Maybe one of the first questions could be, how do you want to publicize it? And making sure that how it's publicized on the website is clear, accurate, concise, and informative to those who may want to consider applying.
So is there consensus to have EDC look at this and advise? I mean, because that's the thing, it's like there are advisory committees. So. Very cool. General consensus is fine.
Yeah,
So there's
absolutely.
no formal action.
Yeah, if it turns into a program requirement that was approved as part of the program, we can bring that back to the board at a later time. If these are process and clarification questions, then that could be in the just posted on the website category, if that makes sense. So.
Very cool. And then is staff gonna take it to them? Like, is it gonna be put on? Is Miles doing it, or is this the liaison?
What's that?
I'm like, how are we
communicating this
yeah,
to the EDC?
Yeah, thanks. I can't communicate right now.
Yeah, I think Miles would put it on the next EDC agenda and communicate the consensus from the council to make sure that the process is clear, that it's informative, it's explanatory, and it's easy for the applicants to be able to understand what they're applying for and how to apply for it. So,
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Will the city manager please read the resolution by title only?
Urban Renewal Agency Resolution 2025-05, resolution of the City of Forest Grove Urban Renewal Agency adopting the biennial budget, making appropriations, and declaring the tax increment for the biennial budget period commencing July 1st, 2025, and ending June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Director Marshall?
Yes.
Director Gustafson? Yes. Director Schimmel?
Yes.
Director Falconer?
Yes.
Director Martinez?
Yes.
Chair Wenzel?
Yes, the vote is 6-0. URA Resolution 2025-05 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. And we are going to adjourn this meeting. Oh, and we're done an hour early.